So let me start with this. Cowboys got Andy Dalton. Let's spend about 5 minutes on that. Andy Dalton, who's solid. I don't think he's significantly better or worse than Dak Prescott, is now a Cowboy quarterback. He is a backup quarterback. But I think what's happening is Dak's agents are playing. Todd France is playing a game of chicken, and Jerry Jones isn't budging. And he said, all right, we've made you 2 offers, Dak. $31 million, franchise for a year. You can make a lot of money. Dallas Cowboy quarterback. You're not getting those commercials nationally without it. No state tax, $31 million. Here it is. Or the 4-year deal reportedly offered by the Cowboys, which is good, very good for Dak's ability. And they've said no. And so they're like, all right, we'll get somebody that's comparable to you. Dan Orlovsky, a former NFLer, was on Twitter this weekend. He works for the other place. And he said first 4 years when Andy Dalton played are the same as the first 4 years Dak played, and he's not wrong. It should be noted, those were the best offensive lines Andy Dalton had in his career. Andrew Whitworth was protecting his backside. When Andy had good offensive lines, his numbers looked like Dak. What do the Cowboys have? A way above average offensive line, and similarly to Dalton and Cincinnati early, pretty darn good weapons. This is a game of chicken. And again, remember this, is that in baseball, there's no salary cap. So you can pay people what you think they deserved, some of it off what they've already done. But in salary cap leagues, it's different. You pay people on what you project going forward. And Dak Prescott, you can look at the numbers. We'll put them up on FS1. Dak Prescott was bad last year against New England, bad against Philadelphia, bad against playoff teams. So if you're going to pay him in baseball, you don't have salary cap restrictions. You can pay a guy on what you think he could do, and you know what? Here's what he did for us. Can't do that in football. Very difficult to do that in basketball, or you end up in salary cap hell like the New York Knicks are perpetually in. They pay people off what they've done, not what they're going to do. And so I look at this as a game of chicken. Don't kid yourself. Mike McCarthy, head coach formerly of Green Bay and now of Dallas. So Mike McCarthy, when you wake up with a supermodel for all those years, Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and then after a while you wake up with just a model, Dak. You remember when he signed with the Cowboys and how long it took for him to even call Dak? This is a coach who has worked with the best of the best. Unique Aaron Rodgers arm, unique transformational Favre talent. Now he's got Dak. They didn't reach out to him. His fingerprints are all over this baby. Let's bring in Andy Dalton. Looks about the same level of talent. I honestly think athletically, Andy Dalton and Dak aren't special. Arm, they're not special. They're good, leadership qualities, durable. Dak's a little better athlete. Dalton, I could argue, may have a slightly better arm. I'm not sure. You could ask a scout on that. But it feels like a game of chicken to me. It feels like Dallas has made, 2 legitimate offers. I also think you get into this. Colin, Dak is a winner. If I said, what's Dak's greatest strength? He's a winner. Well, Trubisky using that is a winner. 19-10. Mark Sanchez, first 2 years in the league, was a winner. Tim Tebow was a winner. You have to have discretion beyond he's a winner. If you think Dak's great because he's a winner and you're defending Cam Newton doesn't win enough. You got to have discretion above he's a winner. You know, coaches like Andy Reid moved off Alex Smith. They don't win a Super Bowl if Andy Reid doesn't make that move. Alex Smith was a winner. The Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl because Andy Reid moved off a winner. But the very best GMs, the best scouts, the best head coaches, you have to have discretion. Is he winning because he's pulling the team or the team is pulling him? And in Dak's case, I think we know the answer. Reporter NFL Network Jane Slater, follow her on Twitter at SlaterNFL. All right, let's talk about this. Andy Dalton's a Cowboy. You have insight. You always do. You have great sourcing there, Jane. So take us through what happened with Andy Dalton's contract with the Cowboys.
I don't know. I wanted to go through our vices, guys. That was like the more entertaining topic. I think a lot of people saw this Andy Dalton signing, and as with anything that happens in Dallas, and as I explained to somebody on this new coaching staff, when they sort of dismiss these things, I say, look, if the third-string running back costs we're talking about it in Dallas. So, you know, you look at a guy like Andy Dalton, who, like Dak Prescott, just two of just six quarterbacks in the NFL history to win at least 40 games in their first 4 years, a guy that, you know, is a bona fide starter. There are going to be conspiracy theorists. It's going to trigger a lot of people wondering if Mike McCarthy is now all of a sudden out on Dak. Is the Jones family frustrated with Todd France and him playing hardball with the contract? I have talked to a number of people on this, both close to Andy and close to the Cowboys, and I'm being told that it is nothing more than an insurance policy. And, you know, kind of like with the draft when CeeDee Lamb fell to them at 17, Andy Dalton fell to them by virtue of this pandemic. The Cowboys had reached out to his agent ahead of him getting released from the Bengals. They stayed in touch, and ultimately the agent let them know as soon as he got cut, and the Cowboys made him an offer. Now, I liken this a lot to what the Saints did with Teddy Bridgewater. He was paid about the same. I think his was about $7-8 million, and it was an insurance policy, and an insurance policy that you'll remember the Saints needed when Drew Brees got hurt. And then Teddy Bridgewater was able to turn that around, flip it, and go get himself a starting job with Carolina. I think being close to home, having a guy like Mike McCarthy, who's going to be your coach, a guy that you can now get into these virtual OTAs, because we've tried to pin the Cowboys down on this, but if Dak Prescott were in the OTAs, they just would have said it. They didn't say that. They danced around it. So I do think it's important that you have a quarterback in there learning this offense, that while they're keeping a lot of the foundation there are things that are different. So you're getting Andy Dalton in there, but I don't expect this is going to be a guy that's going to necessarily replace Dak Prescott. I'm told they're still high on Dak, and that Dak is, in fact, their guy. But I even look at Andy Dalton as a guy that's going to be a little bit more of a credible Mark Sanchez. Dak Prescott did so good his rookie season because he had a guy like Mark Sanchez in the room, helping him, sharing some of just his veteran wisdom of what he was seeing from opposing defenses and the way to look at the approach of the offense. And then, you know, we had Mike McCarthy telling us even ahead of the draft, we want to bolster this position. We drafted guys in Green Bay and used them as trade pieces. And I look at Ben DiNucci, who was on our Boys and Girl podcast. It's on the Herd Radio Network. He was so impressive, a guy who told us, you know, when I said, how is this virtual OTA thing going to work for you as a rookie trying to learn the offense? He said, it's not a big deal. I had 5 different offenses when I was in college. So I think what they're doing is they're just bolstering the room. They're putting more emphasis on this backup quarterback position, something they have not done in a very, very long time. And they just got lucky this year by virtue of this pandemic and Andy Dalton wanting to stay close to home.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see more of these moves by the Cowboys? Little bits and pieces picking up here and there?
You know, it's interesting. They have certainly been so much more aggressive than what we're used to. I mean, when I'm just looking at what they've done with, you know, we don't have all the guaranteed terms on Daryl Worley or Don Terry Poe, but we do know that they've at least spent $17 million in guaranteed money on outside free agents this offseason. And just, again, by looking at the context of what they paid, what they've essentially gone out and they paid Andy Dalton, we haven't seen them pay an outside free agent this sort of money, annual value money, since Greg Hardy in 2015. I don't feel like Mike McCarthy and his staff are looking for project guys anymore. I think it goes back to the same thing we saw in the draft. We don't want guys that necessarily just fit into the system. Show me the best player available. And when you look at what they've done, you know, with even the possibility of Alden Smith getting reinstated, Ron Slavin, his agent, as we taped our Boys and Girl podcast, is going to drop tomorrow. He talked about the fact that he's already back here in the Dallas area, and he plans on getting back to work very, very soon, and how excited Alden is. And anyone that's been around Alden is seeing his commitment and, you know, the change of just his mentality and his work ethic. And he's bigger and stronger than he was even with the 49ers. They're making some power moves. And on paper, this looks like a hell of a football team, but we've also seen this team look like a hell of a football team on paper before and then it not translate into the season. So, but I just look at some of the depth that they're creating at some of these positions, and this is a really, really good team that Will McClay and Mike McCarthy and his staff are putting together.
Yeah. So you don't think it's any message to Dak at all? It's just a signing.
No. And look, again, if you go back to training camp with the Cowboys last year, I know a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, Ezekiel Elliott is holding out and they just signed Alfred Morris. You know, Alfred Morris knows this offense. We don't need Zeke, you know, Alfred Morris can be the starter. That wasn't the case. It was an insurance policy. I still believe that this deal is going to get done by July. Of course, I said this last summer, and so I'm a little shocked that it hasn't gotten done. But I've literally received no indication that they are out on Dak or that Dak is not their guy. I just think there was a guy like Andy Dalton that was available that they got lucky on, just like I feel like they got really lucky in this year's draft. And what seemed like Murphy's Law for the Cowboys for a long time, anything that could go wrong did. All of a sudden, anything that can go right for them is. So I think that's kind of just been a fascinating shift for the Cowboys lately.
Good stuff, Jane Slater, NFL Network.